Under 30, choosing health insurance for the first time, there's a lot to figure out. HMOs, PPOs, HSAs, copays. And if you actually need care, how do you even know it's covered? Well, don't worry, because Kaiser Permanente's got you covered. With straightforward answers about health plan options, information on choosing a doctor, understanding deductibles, and more. It can be a lot, but Kaiser Permanente has answers. Check out kp.org/BetterHealthMAS to get it all figured out. That's kp.org/BetterHealthMAS.
And good evening. We're doing it live right here in Los Angeles. Mottek On Money in the 5 o'clock hour on 790 KBC. 5 nights a week for you, live right here on 790. Streaming live online worldwide at kbc.com. And the on-demand Mottek On Money podcast for you at kbc.com, Apple, iTunes, and all your favorite podcast platforms. Happy holidays. Stocks closing higher today with the Dow scoring its longest winning streak since February of 2019. Investors taking in the latest jobs report today. The big enchilada of monthly economic reports coming in better than expected today. According to the Labor Department, the economy added 199,000 jobs in the month of November. The nation's unemployment rate fell to 3.7% from 3.9%. That also was a better than expected reading. The job report coming in better than expected, setting off the latest rally here. Fed, of course, will be paying attention to that and whether the Fed will hold the line on short-term interest rates or, raise them maybe. Remember, Fed Chairman Jerome Powell had some comments recently kind of trying to pull the punch bowl away from the market, which has been in rally mode in anticipation that interest rates have leveled off or perhaps are about to be lowered. We'll talk about this shortly with investment expert Brian Perry. The stock market's so-called fear index remains low. In fact, it dropped about 12 points today. Taking a look at some of the movers today, Lululemon jumping 5.5%. After that company called for lower than expected holiday quarter figures, saying that it's navigating an uncertain economy, according to MarketWatch. Some big news out of Europe today. Looks like they're making some moves in the AI world. We did see that the Europeans have enacted some new regulation there. As a matter of fact, they've just reached a deal on an AI Act, a landmark artificial intelligence bill trying to lead the global race in the AI world. Coming up later this hour, I'll be talking to the Honorable Dennis Zine on those latest crime reports we've been hearing lately. You've been seeing some pretty high-profile break-ins lately, as well as the smash-and-grab situations continuing here in the Los Angeles area. The Honorable Dennis Zine, former L.A. City Council member, former LAPD sergeant, and still an LAPD reserve officer, will be joining me live later this hour to talk about what's happening in the City of Angels. But first, right now on your money, the markets and the economy, crypto, gold, and the whole works. What a week. Joining us live now, investment expert Brian Perry, chief investment strategist and portfolio manager at Mint Asset Management, and author of the 25% Cash Machine. Brian, happy holidays to you, and thanks so much for taking the call here. Hope you had a good week. Give us your assessment of this winning week we just experienced here.
Good evening, Frank, and happy holidays to you and everyone in the audience out here. A quiet week for the stock market, generally speaking, but packed with all kinds of developments here that made this for a festive week for traders on the market and investors here. Basically, low volatility. The jobs number came in fairly tame. And within that report, the greatest number of jobs created were in private education and within the government, which added most. So some are arguing that wasn't such a strong job market because of the nature of how the report was built. The previous revisions were lower, so that still falls in line with a tighter labor market now. I mean, a looser labor market, and where the JOLTS number came out earlier this week, showing that if you lose your job, it's harder to get to find a new job. So that was a reflection of what the Fed has been trying to do all along here is loosen up the labor market so that the wage gains would come under control, wage inflation. University of Michigan survey came in better than expected. It caught a lot of people off guard on that one, and that really helped the market rally further into the day because it just says, the narrative has been the consumer is going to fall flat or just hit the brakes, and quite the contrary. The spending continues to bolster, and lower interest rates of the last month here are giving people some hope that they're going to be able to manage through the inflationary period here, which seems to have peaked. So with inflation reading coming out next week, we're going to get CPI and PPI reports at the consumer level and the wholesale level here, and also the Fed meets. So it's another week of what's going to happen here. Is the Fed going to hold tight on their narrative that for higher for longer, or are they going to start to basically give into some of the data here, which has shown just the global economy and the U.S. economy starting to find another gear lower. Certainly at the factory order level, which was quite slow this week. So you can say all this to out there and be somewhat cautious, but don't tell Wall Street, because as far as Wall Street concerned, all is good. You've got in the retail world, Frank, we had Costco hitting a new all-time high today. You have Home Depot, huge run up from where it was trading. Other names that I like to follow in the retail sector that kind of give a good barometer of where things are, like Ulta Cosmetics, which is just ripped higher, Lululemon, and Dick's Sporting Goods. These are all the kind of benchmark big box retailers that explain where the middle income, upper middle income, and discretionary income spenders are still fairly healthy, whereas at the lower end, Walmart, Dollar General, and some of the other discounters are not doing well, which is the tale of two markets here. You've got the lower end of the economy struggling with inflation still to keep up, where the upper end, the job market has done well for these people, and their savings rates are pretty good. Bitcoin hitting 44,200 this week, despite J.P. Morgan's Jamie Dimon coming in front of Congress or the Senate Finance Committee, and saying, it's not a good thing to have. The digital dollar getting a lot of press this week here, which is the central bank digital currency. A lot of people there's some people are for it because it makes banking, quote, more efficient, but then there's a lot of people that are very much against it because it generates, major privacy concerns and hands over way too much power to the federal government. So that's up for grabs in terms of a narrative. AI is back in focus here. The Magnificent Seven is right back on top here at the end of the week, plus AMD, which came out with their new chip. Google comes out with their new AI large language model here in Gemini. So the AI race is on, Frank, and there's more to go. It's just, and I want to get into Paramount here, but I just want to, just stop there for a second and get your thoughts.
Well, terrific, Brian. We're on the air live with Brian Perry, investment expert at Mint Asset Management. And let's not forget about gold, which had a record run recently, Brian, up to $2,152.30. That's the high watermark last time I checked, but has pulled back now to $2,020.80 an ounce, pulling back about 25 and change. What do you make of this run up in gold to a record high just recently at a time when supposedly inflation is supposedly easing?
Yes, inflation's easing, but the amount of fiscal policy is still extremely bullish for gold, until the central banks around the world start to cut spending, and the governments start to dial it back on their budgets. Gold is going to continue to, I believe, break out. It broke out, it hit high, and then it's back and filled here to some extent here. GLD, which is the de facto ETF, traded at 192.39 and it's pulled back here to 185.64 today. I think you buy the pullbacks here. I think you buy the dips on gold. The dollar's been kind of rolling over here. The euro, the yen, certainly the yuan is in trouble here, and it shows you that people need an offset here other than Bitcoin. If you're not into cryptocurrencies, what do you do to offset your trade? The other one is you can buy the Swiss franc, which is it's FXF as in Frank X-ray Frank. So that's another way that people just can bury some money into something that's an ETF, publicly traded ETF, and a currency that you don't have to go to the bank and do all the transactional business with. So that's with gold, and I think it's a good hedge. Has been in the future. In fact, if you go back to 1996, Frank, this is a crazy statistic, but gold has outperformed the S&P 500 since 1996, including all dividends. So it's something that people don't talk about much, but it's a very strong long-term investment.
That is definitely to be noted, and of course, we've seen spectacular gains recently in the cryptos. Even Doge has made a big move on the upside at 10 cents here. That's one of those altcoins that we also track. And now at 10 cents, of course, Bitcoin, you mentioned, it went above 44,000. It's still above 44,000 now, well off its all-time high, but certainly a lot higher than it was in the teens earlier this year. And Ethereum at around 2,352 and change here. What about this move in cryptos, and what do you make of this as gold has been moving up? We see the gold chains and the blockchains moving higher.
Certainly do, and still the move toward the fork in the Bitcoin, which is next May, that's on board, where they're going to be making half as many Bitcoins going forward here. Mining is half as many Bitcoins. Again, there's about 3 million Bitcoins missing from the public market altogether. So the supply is fewer. You have a limited amount of Bitcoin that's going to be printed, and this is really it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy here with all this huge global debt that's out there. And it's just now it's really getting another leg higher, and it's catching more momentum here as people feel like, this is something that I've got to have a piece of in my portfolio. So I think that with Ethereum is more of a utility, a cryptocurrency, and I think it's good to own both. I think it's fine here to have a piece of that action here. I like Solana also because it does the business of what MasterCard and Visa do. They process transactions, but at lightning speed, multiples faster than what those two credit card companies or transactional companies do on a daily basis. So Solana has been rallying a while around $65. I think that's the trifecta right now for high-quality cryptos for those people out there that say, am I too late? You will get a breather in here, I think, on the crypto pricing between now and year-end, but then, again, buy the dip.
On there live with Brian Perry, investment expert at Mint Asset Management, and it should be noted we're, of course, all following developments in the Middle East with Israel at war with the terror group Hamas, and we're seeing the price of oil pulling back in the face of all this, in fact, down for the seventh week in a row, the longest streak of weekly decline since 2018. You would think with all the nervousness in the Middle East that oil would be higher as it was initially following the terror attack on Israel back on October 7th, but we see oil right now hovering at around $71 a barrel. It cracked below 70 earlier this week. What about oil here, Brian?
This is a real paradox, Frank, because you would have thought, just like you said, that with all that's going on in the Middle East, that things would really tighten up. But you had this OPEC Plus meeting here, and it just kind of pulled the curtain back on all the cheating that's going on in the system here. So people are throwing oil on the market here left and right, from all the different members of OPEC and the Plus members. Russia still continues to flush the market with oil. India's buying all they can at around $60, and Iran is, we're not enforcing the sanctions here. Not like we should be. The embargo there is supposed to be only no more than 2 million barrels a day. They're dumping 3 million and more on the market every day. So the world is kind of a wash in crude, and it's a more efficient world here. It's not just and the paradox is that people think that the global economy must be really slowing down because oil prices are coming down. Maybe it's just really there's just a supply problem on the black market that's really keeping things the oil prices down where they are. It's really hard to call, but I think that's a big part of it because the lower oil prices. Look at travel stocks and the airline stocks and the transportation stocks; they're loving it, and it's good for the U.S. consumer during the travel season here. So, we're seeing gas prices here in Virginia where I am under $3. So it's that's really there's a counterlever effect here because it's helping the consumer, it's helping businesses, it's operate utilities and things like that. And at the same time, is it really about slowing demand, or is it really just about supply that we can't more of a shadow supply surplus?
Interesting. You probably saw the reports also that China's economy seems to be slowing, and that also is impacting oil usage there. So that's another factor here that perhaps could explain why we're seeing oil as low as it is in the face of what's going on around the world. At this point, Brian Perry, where are you putting money now and or taking it off the table?
Well, there's a lot of mergers and acquisitions here going on here in light of a kind of a quiet, season, and you've got Paramount here today, which is maybe in the midst of a merger or selling of assets here. 80% of the voting stock is owned by the Redstone family here, which is they're considering maybe selling the company here at a higher price than where it currently trades. So people maybe want to look at PARA, which is Paramount Entertainment. It's only $11 billion market cap, and they just now teamed up with Apple to offer Apple TV and Paramount Plus in a single package. That's on the table. It's being talked about now, but that will be a big deal here, and maybe Apple just takes them out. And there's you've got Disney, and you've got more activists jumping in that situation here, trying to stir things up at Disney here. Again, they have lots of assets there. If they started selling some things off, some of the parts greater than the whole. And companies again like Netflix, with big market caps out there can just gobble things up, on a moment's notice. Also, But watching, taking what I'm buying in here is looking at, what's really augmenting the facilities of deficit spending. One of them is TradeWeb Markets, TW. It's a big clearinghouse for the fixed income markets here. People check that out. Big numbers here. So the bigger the debt, the bigger the profits. And you kind of look for how do you turn lemons into lemonade. TW is one of them. Intel is starting to break out here, and that looks really good here. They got some AI technology coming on board here. They're going to they're onshoring the chip business here. They're building foundries. Stock broke out, hit 45 and change. It backed up here, so take a look at that. Palantir, another pure play in AI for government defense, and for those who just want to say, I want to cast a net, Brian, over the entire AI sector here. What do I do? Well, Global X has an artificial intelligence and technology ETF. AIQ is the symbol here. So you can just kind of, if you don't want to, go stock hunting, then you just want to, buy the sector, then that one looks best in class. And there's about half a dozen of them out there, but that's the one I like. Goldman Sachs just made Key Bank their number one financial for the year. Pays us almost a 7% dividend yield, KEY. And then in your neck of the woods, Frank, PCG, which has been, the story of huge, write-downs and lawsuits and, wildfires and all that kind of thing, traded, in the mid-teens. They just did a $1.8 billion convertible bond deal and initiated a new common dividend after all these years. That looks good. So I think that maybe one coming off. There are posers in this AI business here. One of them, I believe, is C3 AI, and the symbol is AI. So take a look at that. It looks like it's the story of also a couple short sellers out there. Walmart broke through its 200-day moving average here, and again, the lower-end consumer is hurting, and they're starting to see some lower spending here. And lastly, BABA, like you noted, China is slowing, and even with Jack Ma coming back to take the helm of that company here, that stock is not looking good because other companies like PDD, like we talked about, that own Temu and other platforms, are just taking market share. So BABA looks like it's heading lower.
All right, we're going to be talking to Lauren Fix about the car business shortly and the Cybertruck, Tesla. What about Tesla here?
I think Tesla, you talk about a stock that's in the crosshairs of a lot of bulls and bears. I think, you don't bet against Elon Musk, and, he knows how to price things very nimbly. China is a tough market right now, and the sales numbers are lower. But again, Tesla's more than a car company here. They're going to be a battery charging company here. They're going to be the royalties from their self-driving business are going to be huge, and their battery business is also going to be one of where they're going to be supplying many other EV companies out there. So it's a multifaceted story here at Tesla, and I'm long the stock, and I'm going to stay there because again, I just think Elon Musk will figure it out before all the other people try to. He's a mile ahead, and he owns 82% of the market right now. So I think that's going to be a lead that's going to be hard to close on.
Terrific, Brian. Well, thank you very much. We wish you and everyone there a wonderful holiday season. Hope to connect with you again as soon as possible. We appreciate it. Brian Perry, investment expert, chief investment strategist, and portfolio manager at Mint Asset Management, author of the 25% Cash Machine, which seems to be cranked up again. Brian, great to have you with us. Thank you very much for joining us live here tonight.
Always great, Frank. Have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you very much, Brian. And let's get right out to the freeways now here in Los Angeles on 790 KBC. Friends, people like you and me have our ear to the ground on all things business. We like to be informed and well prepared. As important as finance is, I want you to have a plan in case you're hit by someone not paying attention to the road. Thinking ahead serves us well, and even still, we can get caught off guard as people are so focused on their destinations that they might not have a plan if they're in an accident that's not their fault. That's why I encourage you to put my friend Attorney Clark Fielding's number in your phone. That number is 833-88-SHARK. So if you're hurt in an accident, you'll be ready with your strategy to make Clark Fielding your very first call. Fielding Law aims for the highest possible settlements, considering you might need long-term care, rehab, compensation for lost wages, and any ongoing physical or emotional pain. So if you're hurt in any kind of accident, call for a free consultation with Fielding Law. You can trust them. They're honest, respected, and your strategy in case you get into that unexpected accident. Motorcycle, truck, pedestrian, scooter, hit and run, boating, bike accidents, you name it. The number to call is 833-88-SHARK. That's 833-88-SHARK. Or go to clarkthesharklaw.com. Yeah. 790 KBC welcomes. Want to take a guess? Peter Frampton in concert live at the Greek Theater April 13th. Tickets are on sale today at Ticketmaster.com. And right now, caller 9 wins at 1-888-795-2222. You can get a pair of tickets to the show. You can wake up the following morning with a wine glass in your hand. As Peter Frampton would say, call now. Caller 9 wins 1-888-795-2222. Mottek On Money continues here in 790 KBC. Good evening. The Dow coming in for a closing gain of 130 points, settling at 36,248. The S&P 500 up 19 at 4604, and the Nasdaq up 64 points at 14,404. The yield in the 10-year note has been easing lately, and that is good news for mortgage rates, which have eased a bit again this week. Taking a look at the yield in the 10-year note, it was down around 4. Let's take a look here. Right now at 4.23%. So it did move a bit higher today during the trading day. We did see shares of Paramount moving higher today. As Brian Perry mentioned, the stock got a lift on reports that the company might be taken over. There's takeover speculation here, according to The Hollywood Reporter and other sources. The Paramount Global stock popped on takeover speculation. Shares in the studio jumping by about 13% today on Wall Street. Chatter around Skydance Media and Redbird Capital possibly courting a deal with controlling shareholder Sherry Redstone. Taking a look at the price of gold, which has been hitting record highs recently. Right now down about $25 and change to $2,020.80 an ounce. Oil got below $70 a barrel this week. It did get a pop today up $1.92 at $71.26 a barrel. And now the latest news for you here on 790 KBC. Mottek On Money continues here on 790 KBC. Good evening. More shocking crime videos out there. Did you see the one where a band of robbers broke into a business? The owner of that business has been speaking out about city leadership following that unfortunate episode where small business owner has been broken into 4 times now. Delta Construction and Electric in LaSalle Park in northeast Los Angeles, speaking out about what happened in the Bird Streets of Los Angeles, the famous neighborhood that's profiled in a lot of those real estate shows. Keanu Reeves lives in that neighborhood, and his house got broken into this past week. Car 54, where are you? Mayor Karen Bass says the city's now trying to grow the LAPD after years of a shrinking force. Let's talk about all of this now with the Honorable Dennis Zine, former Los Angeles City Council member, longtime Los Angeles police officer, police sergeant, and still a reserve officer in the LAPD with, at last check, 55 years and counting service to the City of Angels. Dennis Zine, thank you very much for taking the call, and give us your reaction to these latest reports.
Frank, it's the same story, just more victims. And we know the criminal element does not face serious charges because we have a district attorney who doesn't believe in any type of punishment for people who commit crime, whether it's violent crime or not a violent crime. Shoplifting, for example, smash and grabs, grand theft auto. We now have in the news about L.A. County deputy sheriffs who committed suicide because they're shorthanded in the sheriff's department, as well as LAPD. And some of these folks in law enforcement are so frustrated and so burned out. It's sad that recently 4 L.A. County deputy sheriffs committed suicide. But we look at the crime stats. The crime stats clearly reflect there's not enough law enforcement to do the job. And at the same time, when they do the job, there's not a consequence with the criminal justice system, where you have a district attorney over and over and over sides with a criminal element instead of utilizing the law that's been in place, signed by governors, put in place to make sure that there's a consequence for committing crime. So I don't blame anyone other than Garcetti. I keep on saying Garcetti. Gascon. Gascon is the core of the problem with this. But it's sad when I read the stories about law enforcement personnel committing suicide because they become so frustrated and the maximum overtime and the mandatory overtime that comes into place. But when we talk about crime, the burglary, the grand theft auto, the theft from motor vehicle, theft all the way across the board, you find arrests are down. Why? Because you don't have the personnel. So when you look at a broken system, the broken system is because the criminal justice system lets these people commit crimes over and over and over. And then you got the victims that come forward and say, my business is broken into, my car's been broken into. They now have people that leave their windows down so people won't break into the car to steal the radio that's already been stolen. It's a revolving door, and the problem is it's not stopping. And it's not stopping because we have a terrible justice system when it comes to prosecution of people who commit crimes, whether it's crimes against property, crimes against person. And that's the problem. It really rests with that. Until we get down to the point where they're held accountable, this is going to continue. This trend will continue, and we'll find more and more sad situations that we have to talk about.
On there live with the Honorable Dennis Zine. Certainly heartbreaking what you noted regarding the sheriff's deputies. Overworked, and at this point, this mandatory overtime has become an issue, and now the LAPD looking to hire after years of a shrinking force now, and Mayor Bass trying to turn things around here. What is the story there, Dennis Zine, regarding hiring at the LAPD, and are they going to be successful in trying to rebuild this force?
It's going to take years to rebuild the force. I understand a huge number of personnel that put in for retirement. The big retirement is January and July, big-time retirement. And I heard there's a number of LAPDs that have already put in for retirement, and I don't have the specific number, but I heard the number is staggering. How many have had the time on the job? They're going to receive a pension. They're going to leave, and I heard that number is going to drop down. Currently, they're at 8947. That's as of November 18th, 8947 for the massive city of Los Angeles. And you, I'm sure, have LAPD sheriffs, Highway Patrol officers listening. They talk about they want to hire 1,000 sheriffs. They want to hire 1,000 Highway Patrol. We're going to hire a couple more officers here and there. People don't want to get into law enforcement when you believe you can't really do the job because the criminal justice system doesn't permit you to do the job. And this is a consequence that continues to revolve around. I've got 55 years. I've seen it go when you could do your job as a police officer to where it is today, where you throw your hands up and say, does anyone care? Do we have to do the job? Can we do the job with the resources, the limited resources that we have to deal with the escalating crime situation? Smash and grabs, continuously smash and grabs. And they got a state task force. The bottom line is smash and grabs have not stopped.
What about the no bail situation, too? That's got to be frustrating, not only for victims of crime who can see the perpetrator hours later or the next day, but for the officers, what is the mood out there when you have criminals arrested and out immediately?
Exactly. So you say, what have we done? We risk our lives, apprehend people, we go through the system, and they walk back out the door and laugh at the law enforcement officers. Well, I'll be back again. And by the time we get to a call, if people call 911, how many rings before 911 answers the call? And then if they do answer the call, how many times do you have to wait for the unit to respond to the scene because you've got a depleted number of units in the field? The number of detectives have been dwindled. I mean, all across the board. It's really a system that is collapsing, and I commend the Mayor Bass, for trying to fix it. It's going to take years, and we've got the Olympics coming to town. I don't know how we're going to manage with the resources. And I worked the 84 Olympics. We had sufficient personnel. I don't know how it's going to work this time. But again, 8,947 as of right now in the field, LAPD. And when I talk about that, everybody says, oh, there's a lot of people. That's from the chief of police, all the administrators, everyone who is a detective, a uniformed officer, sick, injured on duty, whatever the case. That's the whole entire number. Not enough for the city of Los Angeles. And I commend Mayor Bass for trying, but I think her efforts are really falling short of what we need to provide safety in the city of the Angels.
Right, and that business owner who saw a mob of criminals breaking into and looting a store this week blasted Mayor Bass and the current leadership here over what's happened. People are speaking out and are really sick about this and are ready for the pendulum to swing the other way.
Well, it's not swinging, and I don't know when it's going to start swinging the other way, but clearly what's been put in place is not causing a movement to change. CCW opportunities are going out the window. There's such a backlog of people who've resorted to getting the gun to protect themselves and their families. We had a recent situation where an individual in his home shot the burglar who penetrated the residence, and a couple other people got away. One, I understand, got wounded. But this is what's happening. It's become a lawless society where government can't protect people. That's not what government is for. We're here to protect people, and if they can't get their act together, then people are going to finally say, I'm going to move. I'll move to another state where I can feel safe. And this continuation goes on and on.
Yeah, and even in some of the most prestigious neighborhoods where you would think that people have security systems and increased patrols and so forth, we see celebrity Keanu Reeves' home was targeted again by burglars in the Bird Streets neighborhood there in the Hollywood Hills.
Well, correct. And there's a very handsome person who I know personally, Fabio. People know that name, Fabio. Fabio, his home has been broken into 3 times. 3 times his home's been broken into. He's got security, et cetera. 3 times people penetrated, broke into his home, and stole a number of items. I was at his residence just recently, the night of the incident. And this continuation, but he's got three separate times burglary. At what point do you finally say, I'm going to move someplace else where I can feel safe? And this is a situation that people need to wake up to. And people you put in elective office, people who want to support the police. Again, you got council members, LA City Council, that voted against the police contract. I mean, what do you expect when they're not supporting the police in their elective office? What do you expect them to say? And what do you think the officers are going to say when these people aren't supporting them in their endeavor to protect public safety?
The Honorable Dennis Zine, former Los Angeles City Council member, former LAPD sergeant, and current reserve LAPD officer. We again salute you for your service to the City of Angels, Dennis Zine, and thank you very much for taking the call. We wish you and your family all the best this holiday season.
Thank you, Frank, to you and your listeners at the ABC.
Thank you.
Thank you much.
Thank you very much. Dennis Zine live with us here tonight on Mottek On Money on 790 KBC. Mottek On Money continues here on 790 KBC. Good evening. Let's turn to the auto business, car-conscious Southern California. Well, we got the Tesla Cybertruck out there, and to mixed reviews, the angular design and stiff stainless steel exoskeleton of the Cybertruck now raising concerns from some safety experts that the Cybertruck could hurt pedestrians and cyclists and also cause a lot of damage to other vehicles on the road. And this is also interesting. Tesla dramatically dropping the retail prices of its EVs, perhaps great news for some of its customers, but the fleet buyers have found the move a bit unnerving. According to a Jalopnik report, following the news that Hertz would slow its purchases from Tesla, the competitor to Hertz, Sixt, based in Europe, is going a step further, discontinuing purchases of Tesla EVs and selling off the Teslas it currently has. Let's bring in Lauren Fix now, editor-in-chief of Car Coach and the co-host of the Total Car Score podcast, to talk about this and other things happening in the car business. Lauren, thank you very much for joining us. I know you're here for the LA Auto Show recently. It's great to reconnect with you here. Mm-hmm. What's your reaction to the Tesla news here, first of all?
Well, personally, I find it quite ugly, but that's my, P.T. Barnum says there's a backside for every seat. But the vehicle itself throws a lot of flags to me. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration surprisingly lets this vehicle go where any car manufacturer would never produce a car that looks like this. The upright, flat front is dangerous to pedestrians, to bicyclists, to other cars, smaller cars for sure. And that's a concern because all the car manufacturers produce vehicles that have certain crush zones. And maybe this vehicle does have it, but it's stainless steel. Stainless steel is much more difficult to repair, much more difficult to bend. So if it's in a car accident, it won't take as much of the brunt of the damage. However, the other vehicle or the other person would be quite severe. And the repair work is also going to be high. In addition to having a shiny exterior, which they did not come out with, that is really dangerous because the sun can reflect off of it or even light from snow and could blind other drivers. So typically, car manufacturers don't do things like that. They make paint colors and styles that are appropriate for the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration regulations that somehow Tesla is avoiding.
Have you had a chance to drive it?
I have not. I have a friend who's got one on order. I was unable to make it out to that event because I was at a Blazer electric vehicle event, which was also in California, but there's no way for me to have made it there. But I will tell you that, the people that have ordered one that I know, they put their deposit down and they're not going to get theirs till mid-2024. That's quite a ways off.
On there live with Lauren Fix, our car expert, and we see Stellantis, the current owner of Jeep, formerly Chrysler Fiat, announcing mass layoffs, blaming California. Lauren, what do we need to know about that?
Yeah, that is true. The Jeep company Stellantis is laying off their people. They had layoffs partly because of the UAW and the increase in prices. They also pulled back from the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas, as well as the LA Auto Show. They usually have a presentation. They were going to show us the electric Ram truck. So instead, they brought some sort of upgrade trim level, which is what they do when they don't want to have money invested in presentations and bringing out media. So that was pretty huge. But they're laying off an additional 1,225 workers from the Toledo plant, and a lot of this has to do with 2,425 people from another plant. And the reason they're doing this is they can't afford to produce electric cars. They make money on performance vehicles, whether it be the Ram truck, the Charger, the Challenger, which are super high demand, and Jeeps. And now they're finding themselves in a position where they have to produce all-electric cars, and it is California's fault. And until this gets changed, now this might get changed, but at this point, they're going to allow California to mandate all-electric vehicles, which means 17 other states follow, which means they don't have any electric vehicles other than the Fiat 500e. I will tell you something interesting that happened this week, and I don't think many people have talked about this, but the House voted to overturn Biden's electric vehicle mandate, which is H.R. 4468, and it was bipartisan, so it was 221 votes to 197. Now, it will go to the Senate. The Senate will probably not pass it, but if it does pass, Biden will veto it, so we'll need two-thirds vote from not just your representatives and your senators, so make sure to contact them if you think this does not work for you and if it gets overturned. But this is a political hot potato for the next election. Presidential election, everyone's going to be talking about, do they support electric cars mandated or not? And the president can make that change easily. So that's why a lot of car manufacturers are concerned. They plan 10 years out, and now you're going to say, well, wait a minute, we're shifting gears now? We had already planned cars for 2035. Now they got to change everything. So it costs them a lot of money, and that's where you're seeing a lot of layoffs.
And keeping AM radios in cars, we need to stay on that one, too. That came up again this week, right?
Yeah, AM radios came up again this week. We have it on the House floor for voting. And I'm really a big supporter, but, I'll tell you what, all the push that you made to push this through to make it a bill has actually impacted manufacturers. I've driven literally every brand in the last few months. I've noticed cars that are electric have AM radio. Cars that are not electric have AM radio. Even the Germans who had pulled it out put it back in. So your pushback, you're speaking out so you could listen to AM radio and listen to Frank Mottek, that's going to stay. And we're going to keep fighting it.
Thank you. And there's nothing beats radio for breaking news when you can look at a situation and explain it in real time. That's what we do, and that's what radio does best. So that's something that people need to remember, and apparently they are remembering. We are also seeing, and this is something I know you've been on, plug-in electric vehicle fire incidents seem to be soaring lately with a lot of videos coming up where we're seeing EV cars actually burning down homes. And what about this concern here now with these charging stations catching fire?
This is a concern. So what I will tell you and what you need to know for the average consumer, if you're thinking about an electric vehicle and that works for you and your lifestyle, that's great. It's important to note that you should make sure to call your insurance company before you put a charging station in your home, because they insured your home as it exists today, and putting in an electric charger, no matter what anybody says, if you have a fire in your home, they may not cover a portion of your home, and that's happening all around the country.
That's a very important point, Lauren. Thank you very much for joining us live here tonight. We wish you and your family all the best this holiday season. That is Lauren Fix, editor-in-chief of Car Coach and the co-host of the Total Car Score podcast, live with us here tonight on Mottek On Money on 790 KBC. Stay tuned now for the 790 KBC News Blitz with Royal Oaks.
It was a picturesque holiday when this storybook town reached a plot twist.
There was a divide in the town, turkey versus ham.
A community split down the middle, just in time for the big potluck.
When Teresa brought out the pork chops, girl, I knew it would get ugly.
Indeed. The next day, Teresa vanished, a victim of meat-based vindication. Will this town find justice despite potluck proclivities? Stay tuned.
Giant spiral sliced ham, 99 cents per pound with a $25 purchase, limit 2.